Tennessee school resource officer lost his certification because on his own body cam, he was caught with his hands in the cookie jar. And by cookie jar, I do mean someone else's wife. Let's talk about it. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Now, the case that we're going to talk about is about a year old. It actually happened back in the summer of 2024, but it came to light in December of 2024. And basically the backstory is that we have a Tennessee police officer in a place called Lebanon, which is outside of Nashville in Middle Tennessee. And the officer's name is Brian Gilley. And Officer Gilley basically had begun a relationship with a teacher in an elementary school named Shelby Moss. And that teacher happened to be married to a firefighter in the area. And that firefighter became aware of this relationship that existed between Officer Gilley and Miss Moss. Well, Officer Gilley was a school resource officer, but he even had a special assignment within that role, and he was actually the D.A.R.E officer, which meant that he traveled around to different schools. So he wasn't assigned to one particular school all the time. A lot of times when a school resource officer is assigned, they're assigned to a particular school. So we do see from time to time, when you're in and around the same teachers and the same school system all the time, these officers do develop relationships with these people. But this particular officer had like a roving assignment where he went around to different schools and taught D.A.R.E. So the issue became this firefighter made this formal complaint against Officer Gilley about the affair with his wife. Well, unbeknownst to the firefighter, there was actually evidence on the officer's body cam. And I don't know how long they keep the evidence, but they were able to go back and review it. The reason I wanted to show this case is because Tennessee is doing something interesting that other states aren't doing. And it's almost like Tennessee has this sort of bipolar relationship with their love of law enforcement, because on the one hand, we have all these sort of like Back the Blue crowd where they're advancing legislation like the Back the Blue Act, and they've changed the stop and ID requirement in Tennessee recently. There's a new law that just went into effect that basically conforms itself to the Brown versus Texas standard, which means that if a police officer in Tennessee stops and asks you for identification, if they have reasonable articulable suspicion, then you are required to give it to them. And now it's a separate charge under Tennessee law. We're going to do a video later on that, because surely there will be a case that comes to light where a police officer doesn't understand the RAS standard or the Brown versus Texas standard and believes they can just walk up to anybody they want and ask for an ID and they're going to arrest them, and we're going to get a chance to talk about it and what the nuance of the law is and how it actually works. But that's not really the point. The point is that in Tennessee, we're doing certain things that make it seem like we're 100% pro law enforcement. But on the other hand, we're also doing some accountability things that are a little bit different. And one of those things is that we put the post hearings and the post board meetings on one of the state of Tennessee's YouTube pages. It's actually under the Commerce and Insurance site. So every time that the post board meets, whether it's formal or informal, they post that meeting like a Zoom link on YouTube, and you can go watch it. So what happens is anytime that a police officer in Tennessee apparently resigns during the pendency of an investigation, the department is supposed to move to decertify that officer. So in other words, Gilley is under internal affairs investigation for allegedly having an affair with a firefighter's wife, and they bring Gilley in, they ask him some questions, he gives them some answers, and then he ultimately resigns. Anytime that happens before the end of an investigation, before the chief of police or the sheriff can make a determination as to whether or not he should be disciplined in some way, if the police officer resigns during the pendency of that investigation, the police department is supposed to send their information over to the post commission and ask for them to be decertified. So then that forces the police officer to have to go explain themselves to the post commission and be subject to questioning by the people who will decide whether they're going to remain a certified police officer. So we're just going to go check it out, and then you can get sort of the whole backstory from the actual lieutenant at the police department who's telling the post commission why they're there in the first place, and then we'll kick over to the body cam and we'll watch and see what's actually found on the body cam, and you'll get sort of the whole picture. So let's check out the videos, and we'll come up and wrap it up and talk about some things along the way.
Brian Christopher Gilley. Mr. Gilley was submitted for decertification based on resigning during an internal investigation. We have a representative from the Lebanon Police Department here. Sir, if you would, for the record, please state your name and your position with the department and tell us why Mr. Gilley is up for decertification.
Yes, sir. My name is Eddie Brown. I'm a lieutenant with Lebanon Police Department. Excuse me, professional specialist. So on October the 24th of 2022, he started with the Lebanon Police Department. During his tenure there, as far as disciplinary actions, on October the 17th, 2023, he had received a verbal counseling for not activating his in-car video in his patrol. 7/24 of 2024, he was involved in an internal affairs investigation with a pre-action hearing. And because of that pre-action hearing, he was disciplined or written reprimand for conduct and becoming an officer. Just a little story behind that. After a traffic stop, he stopped a female, issued some tickets to the female. During the traffic stop, she opened up that she was having some issues with it disclosed those problems with Officer Gilley at the time. An hour after the traffic stop, Officer Gilley says that Instagram popped up on his phone. He reached out to her to see if she was okay. That in turn allowed the lady's fourth grader to reach out to Officer Gilley and say how he was displeased with. He looked held law enforcement at a high standard because of this. He looked that on, and there was no more. I think he responded back. Also responded back. There's no other conversation.
This story that he gives is also bullshit, and everybody knows it's bullshit. So you stop a car, and then just miraculously, because of opportunity, it just happens to be that this girl's Instagram pops up on your phone out of nowhere, a person you've never met before. Now, look, I do buy into the idea that if you talk about anything, Mark Zuckerberg will send you a product endorsement on Facebook or Instagram. I know that's a real thing, but the notion that you actually just coming into contact with another person and all of a sudden that person is triggered as a person you may know. I mean, maybe it's possible that that's the case, but still it took an intentional act by Gilley to reach out to that person and say, "Oh, are you okay?" And obviously, there was some conversation that went back and forth between Gilley and this girl in the traffic stop about, some problems that she's having with her boyfriend. Okay. So we already have issues. So we're July of 2024. And just a little bit later, we're going to find out about what's going on with this particular case.
So December the 19th, 2024, Chief Justice ordered another internal affairs investigation after receiving an official complaint from Randy Moss. He actually works for the local fire department with us. So Mr. Moss filed an official complaint on Officer Gilley regarding him having an affair with his wife, who is a school teacher. Gilley is a school teacher at the elementary school, Castlines Elementary. So Mr. Moss located text message threads that indicated Shelby and Gilley having a sexual relations, digital penetration on the school campus inside her classroom. When confronted, Shelby eventually admitted to the affair starting back in August of 2024 and the sexual relations in the classroom after school. So when I interviewed Officer Gilley on December the 19th, Officer Gilley agreed that he met Shelby at Castle Heights Elementary School. One of his main responsibilities there, Officer Gilley, is the D.A.R.E officer. So he traveled, he went to different schools throughout the city, Lebanon Special School District. So he made it one of his responsibilities to build relationships with teachers and students. They had him and Shelby had mutual friends on social media, which opened the door for more conversation back in August of 2024. This allowed her to share her struggles with her marriage that she was having with Mr. Moss. They were both members of the same gym, which is Planet Fitness. After workouts, they would meet in the parking lots and talk. This allowed their relationship to escalate. December of 2024. This led to the meeting at various locations after that on work just to have sexual relations. In October, he actually rented a hotel room, a local hotel room for 2 days. Shelby would come over during the daytime and then go home and be with the kids at nighttime. Brian initially said that he did not have sexual relations with Shelby while on duty in his patrol car or on school campus except for the kids. So our body camera systems, when you power it on, it's recording all the time. So we don't watch it on. So we went back and pulled that. So on August the 24th at 2:55, Brian Gilley's body worn camera recorded him kissing in her classroom. No students were present. Brian was on duty and in uniform at the time. So when I confronted Gilley about having sexual relations, the digital penetration on campus of the school, we did not. So I confronted him again with I told him I had text messages that Mr. Moss provided me after he found the text thread in Shelby's phone talking about this. Basically, he said that this is something they just talked about in their practice. So I confronted him again, asked him again, a little bit more aggressive, and he admitted to having the sexual relations, the digital penetration on campus, in her classroom, around 3:30 p.m. School's out. And he admitted and agreed that there would still be children on campus, staff on campus of the school, possibly parents of those students. Brian described this as happened in the corner of the classroom over by our desk. The body worn camera footage this appears to be the same location where they first had their first kiss. It's in the area as far as the body worn camera. So they continue to solve the test messages. He had admitted that the Friday before this was reported that they was ending their relationship. There was text messages to support that. Also, when you continue to look at the text messages thread I had was from November 19th of 2024, I think, until December the 17th is when it ended. The last one I had in December the 19th was when this internal investigation was initiated. So when that text thread, it appears as they were still having a relationship after he says that he ended it. He actually, the last text message was he would pick up some pizza for her and brought her to school to meet for lunch. That's the last message on there. So the policy violations for Lebanon Police Department is the compliance with regulations, truthfulness, moral conduct of a common officer of an employee, and the body worn camera policy. As he was being served with the pre-action or disciplinary hearing notice, he actually submitted his resignation. So,
Questions for the representative of the Lebanon Police Department?
This is Commissioner Green. How long did you work for your agency?
from October, he was hired October the 24th of 2020.
And in that time, you had several complaints against him.
Well, he received a verbal counseling on October 17th, 2023, for not initiating his or turning on his activating his parking. And then there was another internal affairs investigation on 7/24/24, which ended up he went to the hearing, ended up being disciplined, written discipline, reached out to the lady at the term. So,
Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, Representative, you would just be available in case you clarify.
yes.
Thanks. Mr. Gilley.
So something interesting there. That's something I didn't know about these body cam systems, but apparently the system that they use in Lebanon actually records and the officer can't manipulate it, which seems to me like the best policy to have, because now, even though this was October or December of 2024, where they're having this conversation with him and he's answering questions, the investigators in internal affairs, it just goes to show you when they're motivated to get you, what kind of information they can come up with and what kind of information they can stitch together in order to build a case against you. It's interesting because we have these situations that play out on body cam all the time. And it's always like, you were not able to find any policy violations on this particular guy. You're sitting here saying that, you basically investigated yourself and you found no wrongdoing. But when they want to get you, they can find anything to pin on you, including just not turning on your camera in your car. So the bias doesn't just exist between the police officers and the forward-facing citizens. It also exists from the administration down. So if you're not well liked within the police department, and as you can probably tell by my smart-ass tone and the way that I sort of communicate and that I'm kind of quick-witted and whatever, a person who's quick-witted and always has something to say back and doesn't just accept whatever bullshit they throw at you. I have some experience with not being very well liked by the command staff and that kind of thing, right? If you're familiar with the Jordan versus New London case, which honestly I'm only familiar with because a subscriber mentioned it in the comments to me when I started this channel very early on. they want people that are within a certain IQ range and intelligence range, because those people tend to be better followers and listen and exist in a more harmonious way with supervisor subordinate relationships. And I'm just not one of those people. It just is what it is. I have to like and respect you and believe that you're doing the right thing, or I won't follow your orders. And, hey, I didn't like, respect, or believe they were doing the right things when I was a police officer. So sure, I had my share of supervisor subordinate backlash because I didn't just blindly accept whatever they wanted me to do. And so I can tell you with 100% certainty, when they want to get you, they can get you. They'll find a way, right? And so I'm not saying he shouldn't have been fired. I'm not saying he shouldn't be decertified. But he's being decertified not for the affair. He's being decertified because of his dishonesty. But the point I was trying to make is, like, they can always find something if they're motivated to find something. And that's why it's so bogus when they come out here and they're like, oh, well, we investigated ourselves and we found no wrongdoing. It's because you can find whatever you're looking for. You can always find something if you're motivated to find something. They're just not ever motivated to find something because that establishes a blanket of liability from which they'd like to escape, right? So that's the issue. But again, back to the point, they run these cameras all the time. Officer can't manipulate it. They were able to get him to admit that he lied. Now what we should do is kick over and actually watch the body cam footage so we know exactly what this lieutenant is talking about and we don't have to visualize it for ourselves. Let's check it out.
Over here, I can't find it anymore. Good luck. This is where I was sitting before I left. There it is. Sorry, I don't have. We can look for it. Okay. See ya.
Bye. She supposedly that's Hensley's favorite reporter.
Yeah,
She told me yesterday at the gossip table that I'm a little bit cooler, but we can't tell Officer Hensley. I was like, oh.
So it's 3:15 p.m. Children are very clearly present in the classroom, and their images have been blurred for their privacy. So this digital penetration happens, according to Gilley's, when he finally is honest about it, around 3:30 on this same day. Now, in case you don't know what digital penetration means, it's not the body camera peering into the privacy of the students in the classroom. These are digits. Let's continue.
like I could wiggle a few minutes, but
You gotta go.
huh?
You gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow, though.
Really? I guess see you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't make a point to come see you.
Okay. That's fine. Are you going out this door or that door?
Carl, I'll go out that door.
Okay.
Oh, God. Oh. Yeah. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, so there you go. Hands to the cookie jar. There were some soft whimpers and moans from many of those of us familiar with the sinful nature of man. If you want to let your mind extrapolate what was going on there, I think it's pretty obvious that there was some sexual contact, right? So the issue is that he lied. And so now we're going to get to watch the commissioners of the Tennessee Post Commission kind of ask him and give their ideas as to why he's here. This is not something that he would have been fired for. Probably would have been suspended, in my opinion, had he just been honest about it. But because he lied, it shows the nature of what they're willing to do in order to cover for themselves or cover for somebody else or whatever. They don't think about all this stuff before they sleep with a teacher or sleep with the fireman's wife or whatever. They only think about it after the fact, after it's obvious that it's going to cause them an issue, right? So let's watch the video of the commissioners questioning him, and we'll come back and wrap it up.
If you would both identify yourself for the record before getting started.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Wills, counsel for Mr. Gilley, President McRae.
I'm Brian Gilley.
Start off by saying that this is probably one of the most embarrassing moments for Mr. Gilley. He resigned in shame, let's call it. Mr. Gilley's history is with the D.A.R.E program. He's influential with the kids. Everyone here is familiar with what the D.A.R.E program does. And is working with the Lebanon Special School District. He is an example to the kids and to the community. Mr. Gilley was divorced back in May of 2024. And he did begin this relationship with Shelby Moss. It was his understanding that she was pursuing a divorce from Mr. Moss. The relationship, of course, as Lieutenant Brown discussed with you, progressed over a period of several months from just casually knowing each other in the school system to social media to engaging in a physical relationship. I'll note for everyone here that the alleged digital penetration occurred at one time. It was on school campus. It was while he was in uniform. It was after hours. There were no children present, and it was for some privacy. I'm not justifying it by any stretch. Please don't misconstrue that. But the most important thing, I think, is that there were no kids present. He is not engaged in any misconduct in the patrol car.
Well, I would argue that engaging in a personal back and forth with somebody on Instagram that you just pulled over after this is the thing. You can't have it both ways, guys. If you stop a person and they give you pushback and they give you their reasons and they want to talk to you about how bad their day's going, and they're just a guy who looks like me, and you happen to not have a sexual proclivity that would find you interested in guys like me, which I don't blame you. I've seen a mirror. I get it. But the point that I'm trying to make is they have no interest in hearing how bad your life is or why you were speeding or why you ran that stop sign. It's comply or die or get out of the car and get the ass beat off of you, whatever, right? But when you're a hot girl, then, they're all kinds of interested in your life, especially, it just happens that I just divorced my wife. I mean, that it causes you to question, well, was there actually a moving violation? Was it just a pretty girl in a car that he noticed that he later stalked on Instagram? Like, see what I mean? Like, we don't know. And what we know for sure through his conduct is that he's not trustworthy.
Or otherwise on duty. So with that, Mr. Gilley has terminated his relationship with Mrs. Moss. The last communication was sometime in December. My understanding is that it was just simply about a pizza party for the kids. But after he discovered with Ms. Moss that she was interested in possibly reconciling with her husband, that's when they decided to cease their relationship. Relationships are messy. It's not a good one. As a result, Mr. Gilley resigned with some shame. And I'd ask the commission today to not take any action. He's already lost a lot. He is apologetic for his actions, but we don't want him to lose his certification and be able to not seek employment in law enforcement elsewhere. Likewise, this would also affect, of course, his D.A.R.E certification. He would no longer be able to teach our youth all the bad things about drugs and alcohol and what they don't need to be engaged in. So that'll open it up to you.
Look, I'm going to pick on this lawyer a little bit. This is a tough case. He's been hired. This is why I will never be rich as a lawyer, because I would not take Brian Gilley's case. I wouldn't take money from Brian Gilley to go up there and defend him in front of the post commission. What argument do you have? You just go up there and say, I made a mistake, and then I made another mistake, and I made another mistake, and I'm sorry, and I want an opportunity to rehabilitate my credibility. You don't pay a lawyer for this. You don't take people's money for this, because this is your argument that now he won't be able to influence our youth. Yes, thank you. Thank you that he can't go have instant credibility by throwing on a uniform and let his mouth say something that his personal conduct is absolutely antithetical to. Yeah, just look at this. This guy's probably not on drugs. He's probably not an alcoholic. He's just a sexual deviant, and that caused him to make all of these terrible decisions. Kids, guess how much worse it'll be if you're using drugs and alcohol, right? The idea that we should somehow feel bad for the lack of preservation of this guy's status as a role model is laughable. And I get that he didn't have a lot of defense that he could put forward for this guy, but that was a bad argument to make. You should have avoided talking about children altogether. You know, the facts are the children were gone at the moment, regardless of whether it was 30 seconds earlier, to the extent that their faces had to be blurred out on the body cam. That's not the point. They weren't there in the moment. That's all you got to work with. This idea that it's some tragedy that he's not going to be able to gaslight children anymore, that was a bad argument. And I don't think he should have made it. In fact, I don't think he should have took his money. I hope that he was there representing him for free and that he's just a buddy, because I don't know what else to say other than it. I hate it when lawyers take money from people. And that's the sort of argument that they make. Anyway, let's continue.
Founding commissioners.
Gilley, let me ask you this question. You intentionally misled the investigator when you were confronted the first time about this investigation.
Yes, sir. It's very embarrassing to talk about your personal, relationships. When he first said sex, I wasn't thinking of anything about the penetration that way. I was just thinking of actual sexual conduct like that. But once he rephrased it, then I understood, and I did tell the truth.
How many days did this investigation, how many times were you called in over how many days?
It was just the one day on December.
And this is bullshit. And this is why he got decertified, because he wasn't even able to fall on his sword and say, yes, I did that to protect myself, as opposed to, yes, it's very embarrassing to talk about personal relationships. Well, you're the one that brought your personal relationships to work. You're the one that decided to commingle your sexual deviance and your work uniform, not the internal affairs people. It was you that decided to bring that to the public forefront when you work for the public and you wear a body cam. But the real bullshit part of this is the part where he's like, well, when he said sex, I didn't think about, you're a police officer. That means that you've investigated sexual assaults, or you at least should be familiar enough with the fact that any sexual penetration qualifies under the law. If you were going to arrest somebody for sexual assault, you would understand that digital penetration is no different under the law than penetration of a sexual organ. You are still using a part of your body to penetrate a part of their body. It still counts, and you knew it counted. So he's still dancing instead of just being accountable, and that's why he got decertified. His answers to these questions, coupled with his answers to the other questions by the lieutenant in internal affairs, are the reason that he got decertified, not because he had sex with somebody at school.
You said you changed your answer when he clarified sexual conduct. It wasn't that he said he had video camera of the action.
That was part of the clarification.
Yeah, and you attended police academy where it describes sexual acts and sexual conduct. You didn't know that. Do you want to change your answer to say you intentionally lied?
I intentionally lied.
So just like everybody on the first 48, well, what do you mean you weren't at the crime scene? We've got your cell phone data here that suggests you were here on the corner at this store with this Slurpee. Oh, look here, we got surveillance camera. You got a gun in your left hand and a big gulp in your right hand here on the corner where your cell phone data suggests that you are. What do you mean you weren't there? Right? That's the reason that he came clean, because look, guys, if a police officer is asking you a question, sometimes it's a fishing expedition, but if you're sitting down in an interview room after a situation has unfolded, if it's on the side of the road, yeah, it's probably a fishing expedition. But if they've done any sort of investigation and then they have a conversation with you after the incident, they probably know the answers to the questions they're asking or have a good idea of what the answers are going to be. You should probably assume that they know the answer before they ask you the question.
You want to get back into law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Why? So you admitted you lied. So that'll be a problem. I think if you were to survive this committee, that's a problem. You engaged in sexual activity in a school as an officer who is supposed to protect children at that school. It's a violation of trust. And I know that your attorney and counselor, you said no kids were present, but you admitted to the lieutenant, if I'm not mistaken from his testimony, that there are still children present on campus. And not only are you an SRO, but you also are entrusted to further teach the children. So why should you have another chance? Why should you continue to be allowed to work in this profession?
The way I've been able to interact with these children, the way that they've come to me and trusted me because of the way I've taught them, I've impacted so many lives. I know I've done wrong, but I've also have impacted that community in so many ways.
Were some of your students in Mrs. Moss' class?
No, sir. I taught 5th grade. Miss Moss was a 3rd grade teacher, but as my position, I was supposed to interact with all students and teachers because they would be upcoming into the 5th grade, so that they would be able to know who I am, trust me, so that they'd be able to engage with my classes.
Are you serving as an SRO when you're there as D.A.R.E officer too?
No, sir.
Just as a D.A.R.E instructor,
Yes, sir.
rotating through different schools?
Yes, sir.
So what are your hours when you're working?
From 7 to 3, or any other like extracurricular activities.
Why didn't you just admit what you did?
I was in shock. I mean, there's no explanation. It just
Lying is conscientious choice. It's not a mistake, it's conscientious choice.
it was a mistake.
Lying is conscientious choice. It's not a mistake, it's conscientious choice.
It was a mistake. It would never happen again because I've been put in this position. I don't want to be here. I had 4 months off, not able to work, very embarrassed.
I'll come back to this. Not that your actions weren't inappropriate and didn't represent your agency well, but the fact that you lied over, I won't say a minor issue, is my concern now is what happens when it's a major issue? What happens when you've made a really bad mistake? And in law enforcement, that can happen too. Because we've had other attorneys come in and say, you've had all these people make these mistakes, give them one more chance. The honesty issue is what reflects the most for me, is you're trying to hide something that isn't as egregious as what we just heard on some of these other cases. But what you did affected you and this woman and her husband. Other cases have involved the individual officer and their whole agency and the profession. And you're lying over something very minor that worries me. And you're saying, well, I was just in shock. Think how bad it would be if something else had happened. You've got a history of not having your camera on. You've got a history of having complaints involving women. Wasn't the first time you've been called in on a complaint about a woman. And you lied about it here. I'm sure they told you, we've got this complaint from this lady's husband. You should have known they had some kind of evidence. You've been in law enforcement any time at all. You don't get called in because they have suspicion. You called in because they have facts. You intentionally tried to mislead the investigator. That's my biggest concern, is the honesty issue.
Kind of gets back to what Commissioner Wright likes to quote, the 3 W's. And it seems like in this case, we have
I don't make a motion that we decertify based on the honesty issue. That's my primary purpose.
all right, we have a motion to decertify and a second. Any further discussion amongst the commissioners? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Hearing none. Motion carries. And to decertify. So Investigator Creed will let you know your options, next steps.
All right, so there you go. Pretty obvious. They have decertified him. Now, he will have an opportunity to appeal the decision. This is the informal hearing. He can appeal the decision. It takes, from what I understand, about a year to assemble all the people necessary. They'll have to have a lawyer there. They'll have to have a bunch of different people there in order to have a formal post-hearing in order to actually decertify him, unless he just willfully accepts the decision of the informal hearing, which I think there's almost no chance that he survives this as far as the certification. In closing, this is what I really want to say. This case is all about perspective. You know, if you are looking at it from the perspective of somebody who sees a human being here who is in a position of authority where he can impact the lives of children, where he's been entrusted with the public's admiration, and he has the public trust, and he has the weight of the government that he can wield however he wants to. Is this the person that you want to put in front of children? Is this person a person of integrity? Do they have the honesty to do the job? And if you look at it from one perspective, you can look at it from his perspective, and you can say, well, I mean, you know, this doesn't have anything to do with that. But if you look at it from the other perspective, which is that, no, he just admitted that he could go to any school, he can interact with any child, he can interact with any person, even if they're in the 3rd grade, they're eventually going to get up to the 5th grade. He'll eventually. So he is looked upon as a person who is to be admired from everybody in the school, which means that no teacher's safe, no marriage is safe, no child is safe from being under the influence of Officer Gilley. And the issue with that is, look, I have a 15-year-old niece. Since the time that she was 12 years old, she has looked and I'll blur her face and I'll show you a picture of my niece, and I love her dearly, but she looks like a full-grown woman. Her father is 6'10", and at 11 and 12 years old, this child looked like a full-grown woman. Is it too much to think that his indiscretion could carry over into the innocence of somebody her age who happens to look like an adult? No. The point is, we have a responsibility as society to safeguard children from people like this, people who are wolves in sheep's clothing. And again, it's all about perspective. From his perspective, he's seeing an opportunity being taken away from him. From our perspective, we got an early preview as to how disastrous this could have been if he were to continue to be entrusted with the ability to have influence over children. And that's why he cannot be a police officer. And that's why I'm thankful, even though I do have some serious problems with what the state of Tennessee has done as far as the expanded authority they have given to law enforcement and the Back the Blue Act and some of the stuff they've done. We are doing things that other states are not doing, which is asking hard questions of these police departments, of these police officers when they resign in the middle of an investigation. And we do actually put this stuff out so that the public can be aware of what's going on. So anyway, it was an interesting case that I saw last week that I didn't have a chance to talk about. I thought I would just throw it out there and see what you guys think about it. Tell me what you think of Officer Gilley in the comments. I'd like to invite you over to Substack. There'll be something that comes over in the comments that I didn't think about or that I didn't talk about. I'll probably mention it in an article on Substack, which is a newsletter site that you can come over and see some of the behind the scenes stuff that I put on there that I'll talk about in the videos. So it's absolutely free to join. You can join on a paid tier if you want to, but it's only for people who want to support the channel monetarily. If you don't want to go to Substack, but you'd like to support monetarily, I'll leave my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.